3, 2.
Are you going?
Yeah.
Okay, you said 3, 2. Hello, students. This is the video that I'm making for JMS 200, current stuff about the movie industry. I'm recording this part of the video on November 16th, November 16th, 2024. I'm driving my son and Noella, she's in the back seat there, to a movie at this movie cinema, Regal Edwards Cinema in Mira Mesa, something like that. It is a South Asian film. Many Americans don't realize that India is part of Asia, but it is South Asia. So within South Asia, this is from the southern, this film is from the southern part of India. So it's really, really South Asia. It's not in Hindi. I can speak a little bit of Hindi. My son can speak a little Hindi or understand some Hindi. This is Tamil. This is a language they speak in the southern part of India. He's got an assignment for some film class. What's your class? International cinema. He's got an assignment for international cinema where he's got to see an Asian film in the actual cinema and write about the whole theatrical movie-going experience. So anyway, we picked this movie, or I picked the movie and suggested it to him. Kanguva, I think that's the name. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. Looks like a big action film, kind of an epic spectacle. It is 2.5 hours long. I warned Noella about that, right? I warned her it's 2.5 hours long. But inshallah, it's going to be good. And so, okay, this is the video lecture about movies, current stuff. I'm recording this on January 7th, 2025. I'm going to try and talk quickly and squeeze in as much information as I can in just a couple of minutes, less than 10 minutes, inshallah, because I want to play a big chunk of a podcast. It's from KCRW. It's called The Business. It's a weekly podcast all about film and television. It's very inside baseball. By that, I mean, if you don't already know about the topic, you might be confused. So I'm going to try and speak fast, try and throw up a couple of slides here. Lecture notes are on Canvas, so that when you listen to the podcast, you understand what they're talking about and you can feel very good about yourself. Like, I know what they're talking about. Okay. The big story in film and television right now, it's becoming increasingly difficult to separate film from television. But the big story is the growth of streaming. And I think you all know that. And before we talk more about streaming, and we'll talk about streaming when we talk about television. But before we talk about streaming, you need to understand the way films used to be released. It was a practice called windowing. There were different release windows for movie based on time or based on geography. You could release a film in one area and then release it in another area later. Or you could release it, what was the most popular way was put in the theaters first, then it goes to like hotel, airlines, premium cable like HBO, then maybe it goes to DVD or VHS, and then it comes to home television. So you kind of work your way down the food chain, releasing the film several times. This practice has gone away because of the internet. When a film comes out, people want to be able to watch it however they want to watch it. But the practice is not gone away totally. Many people in Hollywood are still clinging to this vestige practice called windowing, okay? And in 2011, let me move this right here, the film Tower Heist, I believe it was Sony, was trying to release the movie through day and date. That's what it's called when you put a movie on streaming and in the theaters at the same time. It's called day and date. At the time, the movie theater owners, now movie theater owners and the people who make the movies are two totally separate businesses. They said we cannot sell $30 worth of popcorn if you're sitting and watching the movie at home. We will not put Tower Heist in our movie theaters. Okay. So the day and date releasing of Tower Heist was blocked in 2011 because the movie theater owners refused to book it. Over time, day and date has become more popular, but it is still not the industry practice. Like I said, when something goes in the theater or video on demand, VOD is video on demand. SVOD is subscription video on demand, like Netflix. So Netflix is SVOD. Then you also have the term VOD. Two films that were early examples of day and date were Snowpiercer and The Interview. Now you have all these streaming platforms which are trying to develop exclusive content to try and lure people to come to their platform. Disney Plus did very, very well with Mandalorian a few years ago. People sign up to watch Mandalorian and then forget to cancel. Now they got another monthly fee. This happened to me. This happened to this guy. And a lot of Star Wars stuff is not very good. Mandalorian is primo. This is primo Star Wars stuff. Yeah, Mandalorian really helped make Disney Plus. Okay, during COVID, Warner Brothers experimented with day and date releasing through HBO Max. Now I think it's just called Max. Now, not everyone in Hollywood likes day and date releasing because it affects the pay structure that was developed for the old industry. Consumers like day and date, but talent doesn't like it. There's also this prestige factor. A film is still considered more respectable than TV. So you still have people clinging to the older model. Now, Disney has experimented and done some day and date, but they've also put things on PVOD. That's premium video on demand. So you can watch it if you pay extra, and then it's going to come down to Disney Plus. So you got VOD, SVOD, and PVOD. There's this continuing debate about film versus TV. As I mentioned, part of it is just industry obsessed with itself. Something is not eligible for an Academy Award, an Oscar, if it's not a film. If it shows on TV first, it's not a film. It has to be shown in an actual theater. Seems kind of like hair splitting, but Hollywood still clings to this notion. Tom Cruise famously insisted on holding out for a theatrical release for Mission Impossible movies, and I think the next one's coming out this summer. And then Top Gun 2, he was getting pressure during COVID to put it on VOD or PVOD on Paramount Plus. And hopefully you understand what I said there. He was getting pressure to do that during COVID. He said, no, I want people to come back to the cinema. And the new Narnia movies that are in production right now, Greta Gerwig is going to be directing them. They're going to be funded by Netflix, so they'll show up eventually on Netflix. But Greta Gerwig did get the concession that there will be a theatrical release, probably so it can qualify for an Academy Award. Here are the big winners from 2024 in terms of domestic box office. This means ticket sales. There's nothing new. There's no new intellectual property, no new IP. Everything is based on something else. Inside Out 2, it's a sequel. It's got 2 in the title. Deadpool Wolverine, that's also a sequel. Wicked, that's kind of like a spinoff, not really a sequel, kind of like a spinoff of Wizard of Oz. The top 14 movies are all derivative content. A little depressing, but that's the way Hollywood likes to work. Okay, I just stepped out of the movie, been watching it for maybe 40, 45, 50 minutes. I had to use the restroom, come out. The movie is terrible, terrible. The first part of the movie, it's like a big budget spectacle with computer graphics that are good, maybe a little bit cheesy. Starts at like a bioweapons facility where they're doing little tests on little kids, like 11 from Stranger Things. Kid gets out. First part of the movie, there's rival bounty hunters, a gratuitous musical number. Now we're back in time. Some sort of, it seems like a sword and sandals fantasy film, but with South Asian jungle motif replacing that. And it's been going on in this other sort of fantasy back in time element for so long. I'm trying to wait to see how that eventually connects back with the little kid bounty hunter part of the movie. Anyway, but it's terrible. Enjoyable in some way, but objectively bad. Okay, I'm going to play a big chunk of it. Windowing, that's going to show up. You should know what that means. Residuals are continuing payment that talent would get in the old Hollywood pay structure for reuse of content. You make a TV show, you get paid once, then you get paid on its rerun. When it goes overseas, you get paid again. Same with films. When they show up on a TV, TV channel later, the actor gets paid. Streamers don't like that. Streamers don't pay residuals. Streamers give you one lump sum and there's no more residuals. So when you have these union contracts that were derived from the older industry, they have to adjust to the new reality. Public funding, we don't really have public funding of the arts in the United States very much. In other countries, they do. Other countries recognize that arts are a viable, vital part of any culture, and we need to support the arts. One workaround that states do is they offer tax incentives or tax breaks. If you move your movie production to, say, Georgia, that's a big state doing it, then we can get work for people in Georgia, and people got to stay in hotels, and people got to eat at restaurants, and then other people need to work. So California has been losing work to other states, trying to catch up on that. Now the strikes, I could do a whole lecture on the strikes. They were big in 2023. They resolved in 2024. SAG-AFTRA, that represents actors. WGA is writers. The arguments were over residuals. I already mentioned that streamers don't pay residuals. So that was one of the arguments, is like, what is the new pay structure going to be moving forward when we don't use residuals? And there were also limitations put for AI so that studios didn't just go hog wild and replace actors and writers with the glorified version of Chat GPT. And the podcast also talks about runtimes of movies, which are very, very long. And one of the reasons is, if you know your film was eventually going to end up on Apple or Roku or Netflix, why not a 4, 5, 6, hell, why not an 8-hour movie? People can binge it, go to the bathroom as they want. But we're still seeing these 3.5 hour long movies show up in movie theaters. Flowers of the Killing Moon, or Killing of the Flower Moon, whatever this thing is called, was very long. Some movie theaters actually put an intermission into it, didn't have an intermission. They got slapped by the film studio saying, we're not going to give you our movies, you can't do that. But think about the length of movies. If you work at a restaurant, you want to turn your table quickly, right? So you can get more people there, more tips, etc. If you have a 3.5 hour movie, how many times can you show that in one theater over the course of the day? Not many, compared to a 90-minute movie. You want 90-minute movies, get people in and out, sell that popcorn. So this is a continuing debate, but it has to do with different expectations of the viewers between, do they want to watch it in the theater or do they want to watch it at home?
I am joined, as always, by my partner in banter and in work, Matt Bellany. Hello, Matt.
Hi there.
So the listener mailbag, this will be a fun one. I am going to apologize in advance if I'm mispronouncing anyone's name. I'm doing my best. But we're going to start with a question from Sashen. And the question is, with all the chaos and turbulence in the industry's economics and the current contraction, will creatives in the U.S. have to come to terms with the fact that the industry will never be as lucrative as it was, like with residual payments on linear TV? And if so, do you think public funding will play a bigger role as it does in other countries, especially for filmmakers? I would say that the industry as we knew it will probably not ever be as profitable as it was. It will morph and change, and technologies will morph and change, and maybe people will morph and change, but it seems like it's going to survive, but not at least for the foreseeable future. It's not the crazy fun gambling game that people played for many years, and some of them made a lot of money. As for public funding, I think that is not a thing in the United States. Matt, what do you think?
Well, I think you're right, that the appetite for public funding at the federal level is actually going down rather than up. States do subsidize productions via tax credits, and that does not seem to be going away. In fact, there's a big effort in California right now to increase the number of tax credits and incentives to keep shoots here. And with the competition from places like London and Canada and all sorts of places around the world, I do see that arms race continuing, and that is a version of public funding. To the first part of the question about people coming to terms with the reduced expectations of making money in the business, it depends what you call the business.
Right.
I mean, do we call digital creators part of the business? Because that business is booming. The fact that a Mr. Beast can make tens of millions of dollars on YouTube, that's a pretty, in a previous generation, he would have had a show on MTV. But now he's a creator on YouTube. And do we count podcasts? There's plenty of people making lots of money in the podcast space.
We don't count.
But do they count? So I think the flattening of the quote-unquote entertainment business and the democratization of it is going to lead to lots of different opportunities to monetize. But when you talk about the traditional, professionally produced, studio curated, that business, the television business, that is almost certainly going to be less lucrative for the foreseeable future. Will it build back up? Will we get to a point where the residuals that we enjoyed for decades in television and the multiple windows and the waterfall of revenue comes back? Maybe. But for now, no. Yeah.
Now, this is from Ken. He says that Hollywood has itself to blame for low theater attendance. It used to be fun. Now we have 25 minutes of previews for movies that are frequently 20 minutes too long. And he thinks if we went back to shorter movies with only a few trailers, that would be a good move. I will say that 20 minutes too long, I really have to say amen to that. I feel like so many movies have to have that, a little bit of flab. And I kind of relate it even though it's so different to when I do a story. I cut down to where it's really starting to be something that's killing me. I mean, that's how you keep it tight. Do I need this sentence? Literally word by word. Do I need this word?
Well, and it's often not you. It's an editor that is doing that because you, as the author, maybe doesn't have the best perspective on that. And
exactly.
same with the studios.
Movies, yes.
We have seen these movies get too long because the leverage has shifted. If Studio X won't let you keep that 20 minutes, then Studio Y down the road, usually a streaming service, will let you keep that because the incentives on streaming are for longer movies. Now, I will caveat this by saying that when you talk to the studios about this issue, they say that their internal research shows that if a movie is good, people don't care how long it is.
That is true.
They will watch it.
But then it's less good if it's too long.
Right. And there's a little bit of a mistake in the question there because he's blaming Hollywood for the theater problem and the 25
in terms of
minutes
the trailers.
Of trailers. Mm-hmm. That is a theater exhibition issue. The commercials and the trailer length before a movie, that is entirely in the control of the theater. And movie studios would actually like it if there were fewer and more impactful trailers before a theater. And certainly they would like it if there was no advertising because they don't share in that money. So that is a theater question. And it's this weird symbiotic relationship that the Hollywood studios have with the theater chains that they do not own.
You know, it used to be so fun to see the previews, but now with the internet, it's not. And
we've seen them all.
I get why they want to promote the things, but I mean, you've seen them all. I mean, normal people, not necessarily. But, you know, I get why they want to promote it, but sometimes it's self-defeating.
And then the podcast talks about the contraction in the TV and film industries. Several years ago, the film Hollywood overexpanded, especially the streamers. They devoted too much money to developing content, and they didn't have enough viewers to actually justify that. They were actually losing money. So we are seeing this period of contraction. And today, as of this recording, January 7th, 2025, Disney is going to acquire Fubo streaming service. So Hulu, Disney, Fubo will all be bundled together. This is an example of the contraction, the overextension of the industry a few years ago, and it is contracting. And then when they talk about need for intellectual property, I was mentioning this previously, Hollywood likes to go to things that are already proven, already been made, rather than create something totally new. That doesn't always work. Borderlands was a huge flop in 2024 based on a video game. I saw the movie, terrible, worst movie ever. I don't know the video game. I don't think that would have helped. I think it was just a crap movie. Sorry if you like that movie. Borderlands is terrible. One of this like catastrophic mistake, you know, it lost millions upon millions of dollars. So just because you base something on a existing IP is no guarantee of success. Okay.
Here. So this is the first anonymous one. What is the return on investment?
People very interested in FYC campaigns.
The for-your consideration, that's what FYC is, for-your consideration ads and efforts. In an era of belt-tightening, what is the perceived value of awards nominations and wins? What's the value of ego? I don't think there's any scientific way of establishing, although we do know there's at least in the past many years, been a bounce with a lot of Oscar nominations.
Although that is largely going away in the
now
box
it's more like a win
context.
A win helps.
Yeah, there's a couple reasons why there is a value assigned to awards. First of all, in the streaming context, it's a nice differentiator. If you go on a service that is cluttered with thousands and thousands of shows and movies,
Netflix.
And let's just a random streamer, and some of them say that they're an Oscar winner or an Emmy winner, you're more likely to check that out. It's also a magnet for talent. Talent likes awards. That has been true since the very first Oscar was handed out 90-something years ago. And if you want to work with the best talent, you have to show them that you can win them awards. And that's where this entire ecosystem originates.
Yes. What's the value of ego is really a good question that cannot be answered, but you have to treat talent a certain way. I don't know if you see billboards and stuff for it, but we do get some absolutely ludicrous ads that you see for something like, randomly like Sonic 2 or something.
Oh, for FYC billboards?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's written into contracts.
Yeah.
In order to get the project, you have to promise an awards campaign.
And it is expensive. And there is, we'll look back at Netflix, which is desperately been trying to win Best Picture from the beginning and watched Apple grab it up in the first year. I think that there's a still lingering prejudice against movies that are exclusively online among Academy members.
The fact that Roma lost to Green Book says everything you need to know about whether people will vote for the theatrical movie over the streaming movie. Maybe that's changed. At some point it'll happen. Netflix will have the absolute right movie that is undeniable, and it will win Best Picture, but it hasn't happened yet.
I'm talking with Matt Bellany, a founding partner of Puck, for our first ever listener mailbag. Another anonymous. Gosh, what is all you shy people? Did the studios post record profits before the strikes, as unions claimed, or were failing studios killed by the strikes, as now claimed?
Well, can both be true? Listen, the guilds were referring to the run-up of peak TV, where until 2022, the stock prices of most of the media companies were buoyed by the impression that they were gaining subscribers, they were chasing Netflix, and they all did get their share prices way up there. That has since retreated. I don't think
Wall
it's because
Street pivoted and said, hey, and this is a genius moment, really, like how smart do you have to be to figure this out? Maybe the number of subscribers is not as important as whether you're making any money. That's where Wall Street went, and the studios had to chase that.
Yeah, and that was not due to the strike. Now, the strike, there's a really interesting debate going on within the industry over the actual impact of the strike and whether it caused these studios and streamers to essentially wake up from their fever dream and realize that they didn't need a lot of the content that they were spending money on, or whether that realization happened before the strike.
Yeah.
And the strike simply
a convenient opportunity.
Yes, exactly. So smart people can disagree about that, but the strike certainly didn't help the overall business because it is still struggling to get back to where it was before.
Strike and COVID, very bad combo. Okay, so Annie sent us one. Post-contraction, what conditions will allow fresh IP to emerge along with new writers, talent, and showrunners? Matt, I don't have a really prepackaged answer. I mean, this business depends on new writers, talent, and showrunners. There has to be new stuff. We were just chatting about this earlier off mic. You can't run a company like Disney without new stuff. Disney, of course, has done a ton of sequels and remakes and live action versions of this and that. But if you don't come up with new stuff, you can't get the theme parks to be attractive. You can't get the lunch boxes and the backpacks and the pajamas, all of that stuff. I mean, there's some things that are like the holy grail. Like, as much as people complain about the recent Star Wars movies, I'm pretty sure that stuff sells pretty well because it's so iconic. But somehow or another, it's always been a struggle to break into this industry, but the industry does need new talent.
Yeah, and we're seeing a slight uptick in the spec sale department where studios are buying a little bit more original scripts. We are seeing the industry looking more towards the video game world for new properties to exploit. Mario Brothers, we got a Minecraft movie next year. We've got the Sonic movies. Like, there are new avenues for IP that can be exploited. Obviously, Barbie and the toy explosion that's coming from that.
Hot Wheels to come.
Yeah. So there's going to be IP to be exploited. But when it comes to new stuff, it's just so much harder now to create franchises. And Netflix is doing it on streaming, a little bit in the television world. Bridgerton is now a franchise. Wednesday, although that's based on old Addams Family IP.
And Bridgerton is
that
novels.
Has been refreshing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Bridgerton is novels. But you're seeing television do it a little bit more now. Last of Us on HBO, and they're now leaning into the DC properties to exploit that stuff.
Well, those have been exploited a trillion times. They just
can't quite
get it right.
Yeah, Peacemaker has not had a show, and we see now Penguin, it gets his own show. So there is new IP there, but that's all existing stuff. Originality, there's a market for it, but it's not safe. And right now, in this time, studios are going with safe.
Yeah, they have to place some bets, though. They just have to, eventually. It's a loser's game to rely on stuff that you've had for years, eternally. Okay, well, that's what Matt and I have for you. Thank you for sending in the questions. And Matt, thank you for helping me answer them.
No problem. Thanks.
That's Matt Bellany, a founding partner at Puck. And I am Kim Masters, a partner, though not a founding one, also at Puck.
Okay, that's it for the podcast. Hopefully you got something out of that. I know I was speaking a little bit fast, but you can use the lecture notes that are on Canvas. And then we're going to end with Noella is going to give you a review of Kanguba. Noella lives with us. She used to be the caregiver for my mother-in-law and has continued to live with us even after Nano has passed away. Okay, we just came out of this Indian grocery store. We had to buy some stuff at the Indian store for people coming over. Anyway, oh, we got naughty tomato. I thought this was very interesting. Naughty tomato. So Noella,
Hey,
tell us your review of the movie.
very good movie. Muy bueno.
What was your favorite part? Or anything about it?
Todo.
A lot.
Todo la movie is bueno.
What's something specific about it that you liked?
And the finish.
The finish.